Hello and welcome to Kick Media. My name is Brendan Comerford. Today we're going to run through a webinar and video for Google Analytics and particularly aimed at business owners. And the reason we wanted to create this webinar is because Google Analytics is getting to the point where it's very, very complicated. I can't imagine any business owner going in there and being able to filter through and find any sensical type information that they can use in terms of growing their business and knowing if their business is on track and if it's performing how it should be. So we're going to go through and simplify the entire process. We're going to break it down into 7 steps for you to analyze, and I'll run through that in a minute. But basically, the main reason, as I said, is it's really confusing. It's getting to the point where we have clients contacting us and paying us to translate the data into something meaningful, some insights that they can use to make some important business decisions and marketing decisions for their business. So we do offer that as a service. However, we feel it shouldn't have to be that way. We feel that a business owner should be able to go in and log into the analytics and just be able to break it down, know where to look, and understand some basic information. So that's what today is about. We're going to give that to you. Okay, so let's run through the overview of some of those steps. And we call it 7 Google Analytics metrics to analyze your business performance. The first one is which traffic sources generate the most traffic. So when I say a traffic source, I refer to whether someone visited your site from Facebook ad, from clicking on a paid ad on Google, from the organic section of Google. Could be from Bing, it could be from anywhere. Yeah, it could be even from someone clicking on a link within your email or clicking on a remarketing banner. So lots of different types of sources that people can come from to visit your site. And then we want to see how do those different traffic sources break down in terms of interaction. So how much time do they do they spend on your site? How many pages do they view? Did they just land on your site and bounce off straight away without visiting any other pages? So we want to see how they interact. And most importantly is which traffic sources are generating valuable actions or goals. So when I say an action, it could be anything. It could be clicking a play button. It could be filling out a form. It could be opening up a PDF. There's lots of different actions that we can measure, and those actions get classified as goals. Okay, and then we can measure those goals. And then number 4, which landing pages are performing the best? So we want to know which landing pages. So when I say a landing page, to explain what that is, the pages of your website that people land on first. So whether they came from all the different traffic sources, whether it be from organic, maybe you wrote a blog, and you had 20 people landed on that blog page before landing on any other page. So what was the page they actually landed on? And we want to see of those landing pages that people obviously landed on, which pages have the highest traffic, which have the highest engagement, highest conversions, entry pages, exit pages. So a little bit different, entry pages and exit pages. So landing pages are just people that landed on those pages, whether it be from an external source or from a link from another page. So again, we're going to look at landing pages overall, but then look at the entry. So which were the pages that they entered the site on and which were the pages that they exited the site on, okay? And from there, we're going to look at setting and measuring goals. So the different types of goals, again, as mentioned, we can track anything and classify it as a goal. What are the URLs on the website that represent that goal if it's tracked via a URL? And then look at the goal flow. So how people actually interact with different pages that result in a goal or a valuable action occurring on the site. Then we get into multi-channel funnels. So multi-channel funnels, there's a great little video on our website. If you go to kickmedia.com.au and have a bit of a dig around, you'll see multi-channel funnels, Google video on there. That's really good, explains it in a nutshell, using the analogy of a team playing basketball and all the different players representing different channels. And when I say a channel, I mean an advertising source. So you're paying for anything mainly digital related, but it is getting quite savvy where we can also import offline marketing actions, but mostly it's to do with digital. So Facebook, social, email, organic section of Google, maybe Bing, maybe Yahoo, maybe a directory that you have a listing on. It could be anything. It can be classed as a channel, okay, and they're grouped accordingly. If it's for example, a channel might be referral traffic. So a referral traffic is, say, from another website that has a link pointing to you, and they click on that link and it comes to your site. Okay, so different categories. So we'll look at the overview. We'll look at the assisted conversions, so which channels are assisting in the path that people take toward a final conversion. So people don't necessarily make a simple online transaction nowadays. It's actually quite complex, the path that people take toward making a decision to buy on your site, or even pick up the phone and contact you or fill out a form. Sometimes you'll find, for example, they may see your website and then they see your remarketing ad. They've opted in for an email. They then click on a link from an email a week later. They then go to the organic section of Google this time instead of clicking on your paid ad. And there may have been 4 or 5 steps in that path toward making a conversion or a final inquiry. And you want to know which of those channels are providing the most assistance or attribution. Okay, so that hence they call it assisted conversions. Top conversion paths. So we're looking at which of those channels are creating the nicest path. So do they go from organic, then paid, email, then contact you, or do they go from paid, go to paid again, then organic, and maybe that's the best path that people are taking. So we can analyze those paths and know which ones are generating the most conversions. And then time lag. So we'll go through that, looking at how long does it take before someone eventually, after first visiting your site, to eventually contact you or make a conversion. And the path length. So how many channels do they visit? So in terms of volume, so maybe they went to Facebook twice and then went to clicked on a Facebook ad twice and then clicked on an organic ad once, and then maybe your paid ad, they clicked on that 3 times. So we can look at the path lengths. How many different channels did they go through in order to, so in that case, it would have been 3 channels in order to eventually land on and click on your ad and contact you. And then benchmarking performance month on month. So benchmarking performance, probably the most important step, which brings it all together and goes back and I guess does a summary of everything, and now looks at it from a different perspective and says, okay, that's the information since for the month or for the year, but now we're going to look at that same information broken down into month on month, so you can benchmark increasing or decreasing, hopefully not, performance. So let's go through and have a look at some of that. We're going to jump onto analytics platform now, and we're going to look at this particular client has allowed us to very graciously allow us to do some analysis on their analytics account. So let's have a look. When you're starting off, you'll be able to see a dashboard. And I've left it as the default settings. Okay, there's only a few custom things that have been created here because I want it. Obviously, there's a lot in getting the account structured if you want to do advanced things. But this is a webinar for business owners that don't really want to go in and customize anything. I just want to see basic data. So in your dashboard, obviously there's an overview of how many new users versus so new users that have never been to your site versus just general users that have been to your site and maybe come back again. Obviously locations, browsers, so how many visits from different types of browsers. Not really, in my opinion, very useful information. So this is the dashboard. You can customize this if you want. Today we're not going to go into that because there's also another advanced level called shortcuts, which is a little bit better than dashboards, and I'll talk about a bit later, but probably not in this webinar. Today's a very basic webinar, okay? So let's just skip the dashboards, and we're going to go through, and I'll refer back to our slides every now and then just to show where we are at. So the first step is which traffic sources generate the most visitors. Let's have a look at that. Now, the overview, before I get into that actually, the overview of the analytics platform is broken down into a number of categories. Don't really worry about intelligence events. It's really advanced levels. Real time, if you want to see real time traffic, so people on your site right now. Again, not useful information unless you've got a promotion you've just launched and you want to monitor the launch of it. But the most important categories are these ones. Audience, okay, which we won't cover too much, but again, that's probably an advanced level if you want to look at, demographics, their interests, behaviors, age. Again, it's really information that's not going to help you to influence your marketing activities. It's more insights and general interest in terms of what type of people are coming to your site, but again, it's not really the most important information. So we're going to focus more so on acquisition, behavior, and conversions today. Okay, the last three, and they're the ones I recommend business owners really focus on, these last three each month. Don't get bombarded and you know and bogged down with everything that is just data for the sake of data. It's useless. We want to be able to use this to make intelligent decisions on how you should grow your business. So let's look at the first step, which is which traffic sources generated the most visitors. So let me show you how to get to that. Click on acquisition. Okay, go to channels. Well, sorry, firstly, all traffic. Okay, and then channels. Okay, so which traffic sources generated the most visitors? So here are your traffic sources or channels. Paid search, organic, direct, referral, display, social, and email. Now, you should also be able to select in the top right-hand corner the period of time in which you want to see that information. So I've selected, in this case, since the start of the year, 1st of January up until now. If you wanted, you can change that custom period to be the last 30 days, last month, and so forth. And we'll talk about benchmarking month on month a little bit later. So for now, I'm just looking at the data for the entire year. I want to know how I'm going this year. Okay, and you can also look at the trends if you wanted to get into graphs. But again, I'll get into graphs in another session. The most important information is paid search is working. It's getting a lot of traffic. Organic search is obviously generating a lot of traffic there. Direct. So this is the order. Now this is very useful information. We know that paid traffic is generating more than organic. And from here we can obviously look at it and make some decisions on what we should be doing. So let's look at the difference between obviously sessions, and new users. So sessions is looking at how many times someone has actually basically visited your website. You can also go in here and read a little description of what it means. But this is the most important piece of information. A session is the period of time a user actively engaged with your website. Okay, it used to be called visits, and they've changed the terminology recently. And then new users, so the number of first-time users during the selected date range. So how many people have been to your site for the first time in this current date range up here. So we can see there's been a total of 27,842 visitors in that time, and 18,099 were first-time visitors. Okay, so as a percentage, that works out to 65% were actually new users. Okay, so it gives you useful information to know how you're growing in terms of new visitors, and as opposed to recurring repeat visitors who may be clients that are on account, as an example. Okay, so that's acquisition. Behavior really focuses on three main metrics: bounce rates, pages viewed, so how many number of pages viewed in a session, and the average session. So in a particular visit to your site, what is the average time that someone, or what's the average duration that someone spent on your website? And you can get in here and start to see some trends. Okay, so bounce rate is the definition of that is someone has been to your landed on your website and they haven't visited any other pages, and then they've exited without interacting with the website or other pages. Now that's not, I mean, it's obviously valuable, especially if you've got a large website and you're in an industry where people are doing research. You want them to be engaged with your site and visit more than one page. However, you may find that sometimes if you've got a low bounce rate, particularly from the paid search side of things, sorry, if you've got a high bounce rate, particularly from the paid search side of things, it's not that big a concern, because people, if your paid search account is structured properly, they're going to be landing on the page that's relevant to what they want anyway. So whether it was a red chair or a red cafe chair or whatever it is that they landed on, is if you land them on the right page, there may not be a need for them to visit any other page, and they may see the phone number and call you straight away, and bam, they're done. That's their experience, and you've given them what they want. Organic generally has a higher bounce rate and a lower bounce rates, because they're still not quite sure what they want and they're kind of navigating. Direct has a high bounce rate. Why? That makes sense, doesn't it? Because they've gone direct to your website. They've gone in and typed in www, obviously up in the top URL bar, they've typed in exactly your URL. So they're going to your site really for one purpose, to contact you. So there's no need, they're probably not needing to navigate. They've probably been to your site before, and now they're just coming back. They know your brand, they know your URL. So they're just going to make a phone call. So that's okay. Referral, again, is pretty high, but that's okay because referral traffic generally is. A referral traffic is someone having a link on their website and it's pointing to you. So it might be someone has written a blog about you and there's a link that people can click on and it goes straight to your site. That's referral traffic. Generally, it's pretty high. That's pretty normal. Display is also quite generally higher. We find in C it is higher than the paid search. So we find that display advertising as opposed to paid search, when I say display, it might be having your ad or a banner on someone else's website. You may be advertising on push marketing. So it's not someone actively looking for your product or service. They happen to see an ad on someone else's website, not Google, and they've clicked on it. I often refer to it as bus stop advertising. They're not actively going to catch a bus and look at the advertising on the side of the shelter. They're going there for the purpose of catching a bus, not seeing your advertising. It's pushing your advertising in front of their face. So it has a higher bounce rate. Social, pretty normal, and email, there's not a lot of email marketing activity happening at the moment. And here we can see obviously pages viewed. So there's nothing major there. Time on site's quite healthy. Anything over 2 minutes is quite good. Interesting to see that social is generating quite a high amount of time on site. So that's actually quite interesting. We'd probably want to dig in there and see what's going on. Maybe there's some competitions or campaigns going on Facebook that they're doing. We don't know. We'd have to check that out. And other than that, pretty normal. And then there's these conversion data. So you can have e-commerce data, which this happens to be an e-commerce site, but the values aren't being tracked. So we're just tracking it as a normal goal, as an order complete. So we can actually filter the goals here. So when I said goal, remember we can create goals about anything. In this case, we've got 3 different types of goals. An order has taken place. So being e-commerce, someone has actually gone in and used their credit card details and transacted on their website to buy something. So we can filter based on that and see which traffic sources are generating the most amount of online sales in this case. Okay, so and the conversion rate, the goals, the number of goals, and the value. But there's been no values associated. If you set up e-commerce properly, you can actually say, okay, well, each product, what is the value of each product, or a static value for all products, and you can do that. But this last column is not being tracked. So paid search generating quite a lot, organic 17, direct. So we can see what's generating an action. Okay, so we know paid search works. Okay, so it's very profitable for them. We can then change that to inquiry. We can also see paid search is generating the most amount of inquiries as well. And VIP, so they must have an application form of some sort on there, which is great. And then you can look at all goals as a whole and see what traffic sources are generating the most amount of traffic and goal completion. So again, important, simple information. Now, what can I take away from here? Well, A, paid search works. Organic works. Direct means your brand is building. People are going in and typing your brand name, so they're coming back to your site. So that's great. So okay, that's the channel side of it. Let's go to the next one. Let's look at which traffic sources interacted more on your site. We've done that. We've looked at the goals, so we've done the top 3, all done. Okay, so which traffic sources generate the most visitors? Which traffic sources interact more on your site? So we know that obviously organic gives us the most interaction on the site. So they're spending about three minutes. So that's a good sign. That means that you're ranking, you're appearing organically in the middle section of Google, or Bing, it could be Bing as well, without having to pay for it. And it must be relevant traffic because they're getting a good experience. And that just goes to show that maybe the SEO has been done quite well on this site. And then obviously the goals, we know that in terms of conversion rate, we know that organic actually has a better conversion rate than the paid slightly, but there's more volume of conversions on the paid side of it. So these 2 channels are worth investing more of. In this case, I don't know what's been going on with the social side of it, but I would be putting my money in paid and organic. Now, one thing before we go on to step number 4 is how can we then drill into each of these and get a bit more granular in terms of the type of data So what we can do, this is the default channel grouping. You can also select up here. You've got a few different ways of choosing the primary dimension. So there's a primary dimension and a secondary dimension. So the channel grouping is overall. Source and medium just gets into a little bit more detail. So Google, and it was a cost per click on Google. Well, this one was Google, but it was the organic section of Google. So the source and the medium. So the medium being the type of action that occurred within that specific source. Okay. So we've got channel grouping, source, medium, and we can filter through there, and we can start to break it down based on, okay, well, it's not just organic that's working really well. It happens to be Google organic that's performing better than Bing organic by far. Okay. We can also go back to default channel grouping, and I can do a secondary dimension and look at it a little bit. So it's looking at the data a little bit differently. So I can click on acquisition and source medium, and then I can see, okay, within the paid search, it was Google that they're doing paid search on, obviously not Bing, and then the organic, I can break it down that way. This is the view that I prefer to have. If it says simplesharebuttons.com, that's actually, don't worry too much, that's actually robots, and you can't really avoid them that much. You can continue putting, there are ways to try and do it, but it's very difficult, so don't worry about the referral traffic is always quite spammy, so don't worry too much. And then social, you can obviously break down into Facebook, Google Plus, don't know what that is, and again, Yahoo's getting quite a low amount of organic search there. So there's a lot of ways to group this if you want, and then you can just click that button if you just want to see the default channels. Okay, so you can dice up the view of the information however you want. But this is where business owners should be spending most of their time, in those first 3 steps: traffic sources, how they interact with your site, and what are the goals and the actions. Okay, and make sure you selected the goals when you do that here. Okay, let's get into which landing pages are performing the best. So we're going to jump into a different section now. And we're going to jump over into behavior. Okay, and I'm going to look at a few things. We'll look at site content under behavior. Okay, we'll come back to behavior flow in a second, but let's go to site content, and let's just look at we'll look at all pages if you like as well. And you can see which pages are generating the most amount of traffic in general. But we're just going to focus on landing pages, so which of the landing pages are getting the most traffic. And this allows us to know really what areas within your website are working quite well in terms of receiving traffic, and we can break it down from there. But the purpose is to know, okay, well, this, if I click on that, it'll go to their site, which I won't do. But we can know which particular pages, again, the same information: acquisition, behavior, conversions. So we know that the indoor chairs and tables, Tolix, they're all performing quite well. We can see the number of sessions. Let's break it down into which pages are getting the most amount of views. So we can see this page here. These 2 pages here are getting the most amount of views. Obviously, shop being the category page, so let's discount that for a second and not include that. But certainly the indoor chairs is getting the most amount of page views outside of that page. So they're interacting, and then obviously they're landing on that page, but then they're having a good experience from there. And spending quite a bit of time on there as well. Okay, so just general information. There's not a lot of actions to take from here, except that you can see which pages on your site are generating the most amount of traffic. So again, what can we then do? Well, it's up to you. You can really look at it and drill into this in a lot more detail and ask yourself the question, are those pages, can I improve the quality of those top traffic pages? And are they providing a relevant experience to people that are visiting them? And the best way to determine that is if you've got anything that's out of the ordinary in terms of low session duration for that page. But this is quite healthy. There's nothing major here. I mean, for example, here's one, less than 2 minutes on the page. So, I mean, it may not be that much information. So it really depends. Let's have a look at the exit pages. So I've looked at the landing pages. So highest traffic, we've looked at that. highest engagement and the highest amount of conversions. We looked at that, and we know that the most amount of conversions were coming from the shop page and the main home page and the indoor chairs. So indoor chairs, oh no, sorry, correction, we have it down here. Tolix chairs, it seems to be quite a popular product for them, or page that people are getting some inquiries from. And we can just then break it down and see, okay, well, of these landing pages, which ones are actual transactions occurring on? So mainly from obviously the home page and the shop page, but again, those replica Tolix stools, there's a lot of transactions happening on that page. Let's filter it by inquiry now, and see which pages are getting the most inquiries. Again, as normal, the home page and the shop page, but then the Tolix. So the Tolix is their most popular product. So that may be something they don't know. Well, I'm sure they would know because they're getting sales from it, but it's interesting for them to be able to see that information there. But again, they may have other products they want to push more of, but they're just not getting any inquiries, so they can work out which pages they may want to improve the quality or try and drive more traffic to in terms of targeting. Okay. And next we're going to go through exit pages. So entry and exit pages. So with entry and exit pages, we can look at which of the pages they exited, which of the pages they entered from. Let's have a look. This one doesn't have the entry pages on this account for some reason, but that's okay. Let's look at the exit pages. So here we can see if there's a large percentage. Now this is not too bad. I'm looking at anything that generally gets over, actually no, there's a few here. So exit pages 40%, that's okay because it's the home page. Shop page, that's more of a window page to other products, but when you get anything over 40%, generally they're pages that there may be an issue. Now the percentage here represents the number of exits divided by the number of page views. So it gives us a good indicator on which pages aren't that effective, and it tells us where pages that we maybe need to fix. So this one here, it's a pretty high percentage, 55, 34 is getting up there, 61's not that good. So these are some pages that either there's not a lot, there's a lot of people exiting the website, and compared to the number of visits there, they may not, either that or the other analysis is that they could be landing on the page they want to start with. Who knows? But it's something to then investigate and look at those two pages and decide, can I improve those pages or is there something wrong? Okay, so it's just an indicator. There's no right or wrong here. Okay, let's now have a look at behavior flow. Now this is quite an interesting tool that you can look at, and it just looks at obviously the landing pages, tells you that you can zoom out and you can zoom in, and you can see where the drop-offs are. So when I say exit pages and entry, you can see most of the entry pages are from the home page, but you want to see the big areas where there are these large drop-offs, and is there a clear trend on any of these? Okay. And you can drill down and see that / bar stools, cafe chairs have a bit of a drop-off, but nothing out of the ordinary here. So you just want to look for anything that has huge amounts of drop-off. So these are only 4%, 6%, 5%. But if you found that there was a particular page that was like 10, 15% here, it'd be alarm bells that, hey, something's wrong with that page. Or how can we make that page more engaging and more interesting? Okay. Setting and measuring goals. Okay, so let's now look at goals. Now, again, as I mentioned before, you can view your goals in a number of ways. Nearly everything can be split into, anything can be split into different goals. So if I go back to the channels here, we can filter the types of goals. Now you can have as many as you want. You can have 10, 20 different goals, or you can select all goals. But in order to actually set up the goals, you need to go into admin, and you need to go into goals on the right hand side here, and you can create a new goal based on a number of things. You can obviously give it a name, give it a number or a set, make it based on destination. So people that have visited the thank you page. So after they've contacted you and landed on the thank you page, it goes on that bit of tracking code or a rule will trigger anyone that has gone to that page. Duration, so people that have been on the site for more than 3 minutes or 4 minutes, let's have that as a goal. So we may say, oh, there's been a goal achieved. There's been X amount of people who have spent more than 5 minutes on this site. What was their traffic source? Okay, pages or screens per session. So let's have a goal where we've achieved more than an average of 5 pages per view. That's a goal that we've achieved. And an event. So there could be someone clicked a play button, it could be someone who downloaded a PDF, or they clicked on an email link. If you've got an email on the site, we can put a link to track which people have actually clicked that. Okay. Most common, obviously, is destination. The most common. Now you can then decide that destination URL and pretty much track anything on the site that you like that is page specific with its own unique URL string on the end of the main root domain. So going back to reporting, so that's the types of goals and how to set up a goal. So let's now go in and analyze goals for a second. So you can look at the overview and see where all the goal completions have occurred and the source and medium of those goals. So we can see here, Google cost per click is generating the most amount of goals, organic, number 2, and then direct, so people coming back to the site, they know who you are. And then Bing, there's been a few goals as well, and one from referral and a few Facebook ones. So you know what's working. You can even see LinkedIn has generated a goal completion in the past. So you can track, it tracks pretty much automatically everything that's coming to your site, and that's pretty good nowadays. We used to have to use UTM tracking for a lot of things in the past to be able to manually set up these tracking codes from different sites and different things. Most of the time now it happens automatically, even from emails, which is fantastic. Let's look at the goal URLs. So if you want to see which URLs on your website, so you can see the thanks or the thank you page has generated the most amount of goal completions in that regard there. But again, you may want to filter the type of goals that you're looking at. So let's look at order completion. And you can see there specific checkouts on products. So you can see which of the products where people actually made an online transaction. And the thanks page, so the general contact us form on the page, it generated the most amount of transactions by far, 153. Okay. And then going to goal flow. Now this is very similar to behavior flow in terms of how people enter and exit the website. And it gives you an indicator of different pages that may be performing better than others. But this looks at it from a goal perspective, so where most of the goals are being completed from different sources. And here we can see Google, Direct 13, so it just puts it in a different perspective and view than before. Okay, so that's setting and measuring goals. Multi-channel. Now this is where it gets quite interesting and a little bit more advanced. So multi-channel attribution, let me explain that, and I'll look at the overview first. As I said before when we started the overview, people interact with your website from a number of different sources at different times and different sequences. So it's important to understand how the different channels overlap with each other. You may be spending 20% of your marketing budget on paid search and 30% on organic, and again, some on Facebook, some on email, some on display advertising. Depends on where you break it down, but you want to see how those different advertising budgets are interacting. So here we look at the goals. So again, you can break it down based on the type of goal. So let's look at this firstly as only the inquiry goal. So people that have just contacted you. Now, what's interesting here, we've got paid search, organic, and direct. Now, if there were other goals that occurred from in this time period from other sources, it would be tracking it, but it's not tracking enough goals to filter in. So it's only tracking the top 3 at this stage. And we can see paid search, organic, and direct is having the most amount of overlap. Okay, so that means that people that have contacted this business have at some point over this time frame, since the start of January, have at some point clicked on or gone and typed their URL into a browser. They have clicked on an organic ad, whether it's from Google or Bing, and they've clicked on or come from a paid search ad that they've clicked on. So there's an overlap. So again, it allows us to know that it's pretty clear and evident that paid search is really the most profitable thing in terms of inquiries and also conversions. This is telling us without a doubt that we should be spending, if there is the ability to, we should be spending more money on paid search if it's delivering a return on investment, obviously. Um, However, you may decide, okay, maybe I'm spending too much on paid search. Yes, it's getting a lot of inquiries, but maybe the business doesn't want to put all its eggs in one basket, and maybe we're too overly weighted on spending money on paid search. We're too reliant on that because, hey, it could be 2 or 3 competitors come into the market tomorrow, and suddenly your cost per click goes up by 10%, 15%. And sometimes that's all that is needed is 1 or 2 big competitors to come into the market. So again, you may look at it from a SWOT analysis, from as a threat in your SWOT analysis that we're too overly weighted on paid search. We need to get more channels that are involved here. But on the same token, you may decide, okay, look, organic, it could be the opposite. Organic's generating the most amount of goals and inquiries, but Google could go and change their algorithm next week, and where suddenly, what would happen as a worst case if we ever got penalized? How does that affect my business? So this is really good. So it's ideal to try and get an even amount. I don't think there should be more of any one particular in here. Where businesses should really get to is trying to weight out a lot of conversions over a lot of different channels, not just 3. But obviously, organic and paid will always represent the most. Looking at assisted conversions. So this is looking at the channels and how each of these channels have assisted toward the final conversion or inquiry. So paid search, it may have not been a direct conversion, so people didn't go to Google, click on a paid ad, and then make an inquiry straight away. But they may have gone to Google, clicked on their ad, gone to the website. 2 days later, they've then gone to Google and then clicked on an organic listing, a free listing, and then inquired. So paid search has assisted all these other channels in some form or another. And the same vice versa. Organic search has provided assisted conversions of the total number that have occurred. Okay, so it gives you an idea on where sometimes you may think that a channel is not working, but it may be assisting another channel. You may not think that social is not working, but it's assisted one conversion. Whether that's still a high return on investment, then you can decide yourself, but it's a good analysis. Top conversion paths. So here we're looking at, and if I expand this out, there's potentially hundreds here. But what it's showing is the most amount of inquiries, and we're still looking at the type of inquiries, looking at just a general contact us inquiry at this stage, and we can see most of it has come from paid search. Okay, and then we can see somewhere 5 came from people going to paid search, and then again clicking on organic. So 5 of those people actually interacted with both channels, and then as you go down, you may need to question, you may think that paid search is the only thing you need to do, but once you get down and see that, it gets quite complicated. There's a lot of different ways in which people interact online before they contact you. And if you were to add up all these 1s and 2s and 3s, it actually ends up being more than the 15 that came from straight search. So it goes to show that you can't just do one thing, because these different channels that you're paying for, organic, yes, you're paying to do SEO, yes, you're paying to do paid search, but you may be paying to obviously do obviously other things, but you've got some social in here, not a lot. So it is heavily weighted toward paid search and organic, but if you were doing only one and not the other, you can see you probably wouldn't have gotten a lot of these 1s along here, which are all inquiries. So very important. Another reason also why you should, in your AdWords account, you should be paying for your brand name, because you can see direct to people who know who you are, and they're coming back and they're typing in your brand name. You don't want them to be poaching your brand name, to be getting poached by other people online. And I think this may be happening in this case. Just looking at this. And we could go down even further. Look at last 1,000 interactions. Yep, okay, that's the limit, 41. So this gives you the information to know that you should be doing both, and maybe they're a little bit heavily weighted on organic and paid, and they should really start doing some other forms of marketing as well to try and balance it out a little bit. So whether they're doing a lot more email marketing campaigns, that'd probably be the only thing I'd like to see in here is a lot more emails and newsletters being sent out. And if that was happening, we'd be able to see email, paid search, email, direct, displays happening. That's probably the remarketing. That's good. So probably a bit more remarketing in here. Display's not really showing that often, but that's likely to be remarketing. So I'd like to see more emails and display showing in here, and maybe a little bit more social, but I'm not too worried about that. And then you're starting to balance out your marketing a little bit more. Okay, so quite important to do that. Here we can see the time lag in days. So most of the conversions, 72% of the conversions have happened after they've interacted with their site on day one or day dot on the first day. And then 1 day later, we've had 3.2%, 3.27% conversions. Interesting though, we can see there's still conversions happening even 12 days, within 12 to 30 days, there's still some conversions happening as well. So it continues, and this is the effect. And obviously, you get the most motivated people are always going to contact you straight away, but you still need to have remarketing. If you were to accumulate all these little 1%, 2% inquiries that are occurring, even see how far it goes, even 50 days, even 90 days down the track, 70 days later, we're still getting 1 or 2 conversions happening. And that's usually as a cumulative effect of branding, which occurs through remarketing and obviously having repeat purchase clients if you're in that type of industry. So that's really good. Now this is a little bit weighted here. We'd probably want to see a bit more in the first 3 days. So if you were to send emails and heavily expand your remarketing a lot more, it wouldn't be as, you'd still have a big spike here, but you'd have more of a gradual decrease as opposed to a drop off like it does here. There's a few big ones here and here 2 days later, but certainly there should be a lot more there. So that means that there should be more post sale or post inquiry marketing that's happening, more follow-ups on the phone, remarketing, more emails. People don't appreciate that the sales don't, people shouldn't be relying on sales to occur on the first time someone contacts them. That's the start of the journey. Business owners need to put so much more emphasis on getting newsletters and autoresponders happening and really have their remarketing campaign intelligently designed based on how people interacted with their site. And be a little bit more aggressive in the first few days with your remarketing, because that's when they're interested and they're comparing you against your competitors. So this tells me a lot of information that they're not doing any post-inquiry marketing. They're doing all pre-inquiry marketing, but no post-inquiry marketing. So that allows you as a business owner and me as a marketing analyst to go in and say, hey, here's where we need to make some changes. Looking at the path length, we can see how many channels that people have used that have resulted in an inquiry. And we know because they're heavily weighted in paid search, most of this would be in that area. But we have a lot of paid search and organic that's overlapping, so 2 channels or 2 paths that people are using that's resulting in the next level of conversions, and 3 and 4. If you add email marketing and newsletters and expand the remarketing, I think that this would improve a little bit better. But again, gives us a lot of good information there to know what we should be doing. So this has been a snapshot. I've used 7 steps to go through and analyze, or 6 steps so far to go through and analyze everything. But what I want to do now is put the pieces of those puzzles of the puzzle together and start benchmarking that. So let's go back to the very start. I won't go through everything again, but what you should do now is go through those same steps again, but now look at it from up until now it's just been general analysis. Now we're getting our performance hat on, and we're going to look at it from a time scale, and we're going to jump into the last month, and I'm going to click this little button here that says compare to the previous period and click apply. Now I can also compare it to the previous year. If you are a business that's quite seasonal and you know that, okay, it's Christmas time, it's not really valuable comparing January to December, because you know it's completely different seasonality, and it's not really comparing. It's apples and oranges. So if you're in December, yes, you want to compare previous year. If you're not in a seasonal type industry, then yeah, look, month on month and previous period is just fine. Okay, so let's have a look at this. And now we can look at all the same data, but it gives us nice little arrows that are either green or red, and you just want to see as many green ones as possible. So paid search, you can see that the acquisitions have increased, so that could be budget being spent, that's more. but we can definitely see that there's been an increase in goal conversions by 34%. That's great. Is that because we've been spending more on paid search? No, we've been spending less potentially. But there's been an increase in organic. So I know these guys are doing quite a lot of SEO. So I think that's been attributed to that. 81% has been direct. Great. That's probably related to their sales team. They've probably put on another few sales reps, and they're going through and taking orders and obviously getting people going direct to their site through handing out marketing material. So direct has had a huge increase. That's interesting there. Referrals increased as well, but there hasn't been any goals as a result of referrals, so that's pretty normal. It's probably spam traffic. 31% increase in display, so that's likely to be with remarketing in that case. And there's been an increase in definitely had an increase there, so that's really good. Okay, so you can see the different periods. 31% increase from March, May to April. From March to April and May, throughout May, it's definitely increased quite a lot, so that's good. So that means that remarketing is kicking in and is working really well. Socials had a big increase. So again, you can see those extra channels. It looks like they've taken some advice and they're now doing a bit more social, doing a bit more display, but you can see they haven't done the email yet. They need to get into email and really start pushing out newsletters. They're probably sitting on a massive database, and guys, every business is in the same position. You're sitting on years and years of client servicing, of obviously doing a great job servicing your clients, but you're not doing a great job of trying to get them back again. And that's really every business is sitting on a gold mine right now, and email marketing is the most untapped but most lucrative potential gold mine for generating repeat sales, generating referrals, and just reigniting a relationship, through information. So here, big opportunity there, email, certainly lacking there. So that's now looking at it from a month-on-month performance, and you would want to be monitoring this, particularly if you are increasing your budget in paid search. You want to see that obviously the goal conversion rate increase or be maintained while you're increasing your conversions. If your goal conversion rate decreased but your goal completions increased, it may mean that, okay, well, from the paid side of the search side of things in this section, it may mean that yes, you're spending more money, but doesn't mean you're being efficient with that spend. So your return on investment may be getting lower if your goal conversion rate has decreased month on month, but your goal completions have increased. So something to be considered there. In this case, the goal conversion rate has increased, and so has the goal completions. So that's interesting. But we're doing it. You can see that the goal conversion rate has increased. We're getting more goals from less traffic. So that means the ROI. We're getting less traffic, but we're getting higher conversions. So we're spending less money on paid search, but getting a higher conversion rate. So that's a good thing. That means that the AdWords account's being optimized month on month here. And organically, we can see there's been a drop there's been an increase in traffic, but the goals have decreased. Okay, so we've had less inquiries. So we're getting more traffic, but maybe the traffic that has increased hasn't been as higher quality. So again, that's a good indicator that, hey, it's not just about getting more traffic. It's about making sure that those goals are increasing or being maintained in line with the increase in acquisition. So yeah, there's probably something to investigate there. And again, you can go through and start benchmarking the increases or decreases of each of these channels. And then going in and also looking at it from the landing pages. You can go in and do the same analysis, going back to behavior. I'll go through it again, but looking at the landing pages and looking at the increases and decreases of particular landing pages that are of interest. And this is particularly interesting if you have a specials page or promotions that you do each month. You may want to monitor the engagement levels. So you can see here, okay, we've done a promotion maybe on indoor chairs, and let's look at the behavior. So the time on site has decreased here or increased, and you can obviously make decisions here. Here's an interesting one. We've had an increase on time on site by 7.79% for this one. But again, it's not huge. Here's a bigger one, 68%. So this one's been quite a large increase, a 68% increase in time on site, um, or average session duration for this particular page. Why is that? Why, and is there enough sample size data here? The increase in May, where we've had less visitors, but there's been more time on site. So there's been less visitors, but an increase in engagement. What's going on there? Maybe that's to do with how we're targeting that particular campaign. Maybe it's, we can link that back again. So this is where we need to investigate. But this is stuff that just raises questions. And as a business owner, if you start monitoring this each month, you start to get into it and start to understand the relationship between what you're doing in your business and how that's translating to the data on your website. And you'll find it's often very, very similar or the same. So that's benchmarking. And you can, again, do it seasonal or do it month on month. And they're the things to be monitoring. Last one for benchmarking is conversions. So going in and looking at how many goals are occurring. Now, this is what goals and conversions are the most important part of anything, even more important than acquisition of traffic and analyzing the traffic, but looking at your overall goals and knowing that, okay, of the different channels, let's just change that to source medium. We know that there's been, from Google CPC, we've had 64% increase in goal completions. From Google Organic, 27% decrease. Direct, 100% increase. Not a lot of sample size there. You can see it's only 2 to 4. So keep in mind the sample size of data. 17 to 28 is more considerable than 2 to 4, even though it's percentages lie because it's all based on the sample size of data. And being organic, not a lot of sample size data there. So that's the biggest insight here is the CPC has increased its volume of conversions. Doesn't mean it's been a great return on investment. We need to look at the conversion rate to know has that been a better investment. But certainly something's going on with organic and probably needs to be looked at here. But otherwise, it looks generally positive, but it's interesting information for the business owner to know to make these decisions. Where should I spend my attention? Where should I ask questions? Where should I spend more money? And what channels am I not getting enough inquiry from? In this case, we know it is what? It's coming, we're not getting enough inquiries from email. And we need to really focus on that. And maybe also from display being remarketing. We need to maybe ramp up the remarketing a little bit more. So that gives you an overview, guys, on analyzing. Next time we run through a analytics training video, we're going to focus on how to look at the most important information relevant to you and how you can then add that to a dashboard or add it to a shortcut so you can view it quickly without having to go through what I've done. And there may be things that you particularly want to monitor regularly that you don't want to have to dig around to actually find. And that way you can quickly have a look at the shortcut. I don't think there's any shortcuts created here. No, there isn't. And in here you can obviously see the snapshots of all that pertinent information relevant to your business. So guys, analytics with Google, it's imperative that business owners get involved in this and just learn the basics. Now I know it sounds a bit, a little bit in depth that we've gone into, but it is actually quite simple once you do it a few times. And monitor the benchmarking, monitor the interaction from different pages, from different channels, setting your goals, and measuring the overlap of different channels and how they're performing, and then the month-on-month stuff. Okay, if you need help with that, give us a call. We haven't gone through and actually set up goals in this session. If you would like us to go in and work with you to develop a strategy on what are the goals that you should be measuring, and often that's the hardest thing to decide. What should I be measuring? We'll help you with the strategy side of it. Give us a call. We can also then set up those goals correctly and test them that they're working. And then we can start putting some plans in place or some longer term goals to say, hey, let's try and increase different channels by X amount and let's get a more balanced marketing perspective and outcome for your business. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed today's information on Google Analytics for business owners. Again, it's the very basics. The rabbit hole does get deeper. If you want to learn more, we can also coach you on that as well. So hope to have you on board with analytics with us very soon, and we'll talk to you again in our next webinar. Okay, bye for now.